All right, we'll go ahead and get started if that's okay with you, Lynée.
That sounds great.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Career Search Essentials, which is part of our Get That Job series here at the Champaign Public Library. My name is Jordan Neal, and I am the Career Librarian here at the library, so thank you all for joining us. Before I introduce our speaker, I wanted to mention some library information that we will reiterate at the end of the webinar, as well as some webinar details. So as you may know or have heard, the library is open to the public with some modifications to the services that we offer. We invite you to visit our website, champaign.org, for more information. We are now available to answer your questions in person and virtually. However, you can chat with us through our website just by visiting the homepage. You could email us at librarian@champaign.org. We are still offering our Book a Librarian service virtually if you need any help at home. To request a session, just visit champaign.org/bookalibrarian to fill out a request form. We are still offering our curbside service if you wanted to pick up any library items, or you can now come into the library to pick up those items, whichever you prefer. Again, just visit champaign.org/curbside for more information. And as always, our e-library is always open where you can enjoy ebooks, movies, and more using your Champaign Public Library card, or you can sign up for a virtual library card through our website for instant access. Finally, I would like to briefly go over a few features available to you that might help during this particular webinar. Depending on your computer or device, if you take a look at your Zoom window, you can hopefully see audio settings at the bottom left of the screen. You can adjust your settings, like changing your speaker by clicking or tapping on the upward arrow next to your speaker. Moving to the center bottom of your screen, you will see a chat and raised hand option. Clicking on the chat will open or close a chat box on the right side of your Zoom window, or sometimes it displays on the middle of your screen, and you can just drag it around, again, depending on your computer or device. We invite you to use the chat to ask questions or leave comments for us or the presenter. Our presenter does plan on answering questions at the end of the webinar, so you can feel free to ask your questions, but we'll probably get to those at the end here. You do have, you can also raise hand to receive assistance if you have any technical difficulties, or if you'd prefer to ask your question instead of typing into the chat. So without further delay, I would like to introduce our presenter, Lynée Alves. I invite you to read her entire biography within our event description, but she is bringing us some great insight and experience, and we are so happy she's joined us today. So with that, Lynée, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordan. It's so great to be here. Am I okay to go ahead and share my screen then?
Yes, please. I will stop sharing here.
Great. Perfect. Okay. So let me make sure I get my PowerPoint up for you guys. 1 second. I need to do that again. All right. I do this every day, folks. I should be a little more adept at remembering that I've got to have that window up in the background so that you can see. So here we go. All right, so as Jordan said, I am here this evening to present Career Search Essentials as part of the Champaign Public Libraries series, which is so great that they're putting this on. A number of libraries I've worked with are putting on similar programs, and I think it's a wonderful service to the community. So I'm happy to be a participant and honored to have been asked to present tonight. I'd like to introduce myself. As Jordan said, you can certainly read about me, but I'm happy to just share a little bit about who I am and what I do. My name is Lynée Alves, and I am president and the founder of Interview Like an Expert. I have over 20 years of experience recruiting, interviewing, and hiring top talent for top organizations like the Chicago Tribune, Apartments.com, and most recently, Comcast. I'm also currently featured, and have been for the past 6 months or so, really ever since May. I've been featured as CBS 2 Chicago's career coach, and we are creating and producing weekly content for job seekers. If you go to CBS 2 Chicago's website, you can access all of the career coach content that we have produced there and find all of the links if you're interested. So my role these days, after 29 years in corporate America, is that I've reinvented myself as a career coach. I was a hiring manager, as I said, and I loved that part of my job that I did. And I realized I had a lot of good information to share with people, certainly from the hiring manager side, if companies want to work with me. But the focus of my business has really been with consumers, helping clients with job search strategies, career transitions, interview coaching, resume rewrites, and LinkedIn strategies. In addition to being a recruiting manager, I was also a very successful candidate in my day, interviewing for internal roles at the Chicago Tribune and securing those. And then once I left the Chicago Tribune after 19 years there, securing 5 director level roles in a row in a 7-year time period. So everything I teach, everything I share are strategies that I have practiced and that have brought me great success. And now I have shared those with my clients. They have brought them great success. And tonight I want to share them with you in the hopes that you can take away some great information that will help you have a more positive, productive, and successful job search. So first, let's talk about the current career search challenges. I'm not going to be telling you anything you don't know. There's lots of competition out there. Obviously, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we're experiencing a longer period of higher unemployment rates, although the good news is that with the October jobs report, the unemployment rate is now down to 6.9% from a high of 14.7% in April. The challenge, of course, is that you're competing not only with those who are unemployed, if you are also unemployed, for example, but also with people who are currently employed or are unhappy with their job or simply ready for a change. My clients really are both, are people who are unemployed or employed. So I'm not only dealing with people who are unemployed when looking for jobs. So again, that certainly adds to the competition in the marketplace, and it's just something to be aware of. Now, something I like to make sure I communicate to my audiences is that, what I call the rise of the bots. The job search process has changed so much in the last several years. I don't know, for those of you who are on tonight's webinar, if you may fall into a camp like many of my clients do, of people who have not searched for a job in several years, 10, 15, 20 years. And now they find themselves looking for a job, and it's a different environment. One of the things that you need to know is that 98% of Fortune 500 companies and many small and mid-sized companies as well are filtering resumes through what is called Applicant Tracking System Software, ATS for short. And so resumes go through these systems before anybody takes a look at them, if they ever do. The reality I do want to share with you on the side of the companies is that pre-COVID, they were deluged with applicants. Now that everything has moved online, companies absolutely get tons of applicants. I spoke with a woman who had previously been an HR director at CNN down in Atlanta, and she now has a private HR practice and works with clients. She told me that a year ago, pre-COVID, like one summer ago, they posted a role for, I believe it was an operations manager or director. I don't remember what the title was, but she shared with me that they received 2,000 applications for that one role. And she also shared with me that they couldn't possibly review every single applicant for the role. So what happened is they reviewed applications and resumes until they had 10 or 12 qualified candidates, and then they moved on to the interviewing process. So I know this process is frustrating for candidates, but I want you to know it's also difficult for employers who have made this decision to employ technology in this process for some obvious reasons. If they're getting 2,000 resumes, they need a way to manage that. But it's not ideal, as we all know, because many HR managers would agree that great talent can go missed in this system. And that's a real difficulty that we all face in the job market today. So a few key things I want you to know. The job market is flooded with candidates due to the higher unemployment levels that we have experienced over the past several months. And job searches can take longer at every level, at a more staff level, management level, director level, all the way up the chain. So in fact, the higher up the chain you get, it can be that much more challenging because there are fewer of those opportunities available. Technology is being leveraged every step of the way, from online applications to applicant tracking system software to LinkedIn, video interviews, and more. The job search process, like I said earlier, has changed significantly over the past several years and can really feel overwhelming to job seekers at every level. So tonight, I really want to help try and simplify some of these things and really highlight the things that I think are really important for you if you are an active job candidate, or for you if you are planning to search for a job in the future. So tonight's agenda, we're going to review job search strategies. I've got a great trick for you that you may not be aware of. Most clients I work with are not aware of it, and I promote it all the time, so I'm excited to share that with you. It'll make your job search process a lot easier, so that's great news. Next, I'd like to talk about resume tips and best practices, the importance of LinkedIn, of course, and how to use it effectively. Interviewing tips and best practices will be a nice part of tonight's program as well, and then Q&A, and I will certainly work my way through my slides in order to try and allow for some time at the end of our hour together for you to ask me any questions. So if you do have those, as Jordan said earlier, please go ahead and enter them in the chat throughout my presentation, and then we'll get to as many of them as we can at the end. So let's talk about job search strategies. One of my favorite tools is one that I want to share with you tonight. It's Google Jobs. You may not be aware of it. It's a great resource, and it brings back results from all of the major job search engines, including ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, CareerBuilder, and more. Only one major provider is not included in their aggregated results, and that is Indeed.com. But the good news is, this means that you can effectively limit your job search to 2 sites versus 5, 6, 7 if you're searching a different way. So let me show you a quick snippet of what it looks like. So you literally just go into your Google search and you're going to put in the job title plus the word jobs. Now you're going to see actually on the screen that I've got Champaign, Illinois in my search here. There's a reason for that. It's because I'm up in the Chicagoland area, and if I were to put sales representative in here, sales representative jobs, I would have gotten them for Chicago, but I wanted to, when I had pulled this, I wanted to pull it for Champaign. So in my case, I put that in. You can or can't. The most important thing is job title plus jobs. So marketing manager jobs, or finance analyst jobs. So in this case, I put in sales jobs, and you can see at the lower left corner, there is a little link that says 100 plus more jobs. You click that link, and here's what you're going to see. On the left-hand side, you're going to see a laundry list of roles that have the word sales representative in it, among others. And you'll see here along the top, I won't be able to go through all this navigation here with you live since this is a screenshot and I've got lots of material to cover, but you can see that you can look at business category, all the other titles that come back when you put sales representative in, like maybe account executive or account manager, the location of the job, the date it was posted, the type of job, meaning full-time, part-time, contract, internship, the type of company, and you can even look at employers. So you can go in here and click these little bubbles and search different things and sort differently. And you can even, as you can see on the lower left here, set up alerts. So again, I want to remind you, you're seeing here that jobs have come back from Glassdoor, Salary.com, ZipRecruiter, Snagajob, and they will come back from LinkedIn and other resources as well, even from company websites. So this is an amazing one-stop shop for you for job search. So I wanted to share that with you tonight, a great tool. Now let's dig into resume best practices, because this is something that I think is so important for candidates, and so many people are really a bit intimidated and confused sometimes by what they need to do, what's a good resume, what isn't, how does it all work. So let me demystify that for you tonight. So first I want to encourage you to look at your resume and ensure that it is in an updated and contemporary format or layout. Ideally, you want to use a sans serif font, and you may not know what that is. Well, I want to show you with examples here. So you can see that Times New Roman is a serif font. It has those little decorative elements at the ends of the letters, right? A sans serif font like Calibri, which is widely recognized as a great font to use for resumes specifically, is one where you don't see any of those decorative elements. It's really just straight lines, just a little bit simpler. Now, I'm going to certainly, date myself here, but I started working more than 30 years ago. And when I first created my resume, I'm 100% sure it was in Times New Roman. Things have changed and people find that the other fonts are a little bit more readable and they just look a little bit more modern, current, updated. You'll also want to create a clean header, and I'm going to go through all of these with you tonight. So we'll take a look at what I mean. Include your LinkedIn URL. You'll want to create an engaging professional summary and highlight your key strengths and skills. So let's take a look and stick with me. I know there's a lot here on the slide, but you can see here what Calibri font looks like throughout this document. So let's look at the top here where there's a clean headline and layout. I just have the candidate's name in big bold type. It's important. Your name is one of the most important things on your resume. So you want it to be attention getting. You want to call attention to it. And then just as a best practice for your information, you no longer need to have your full home address on your resume. You can simply put your town or city and state, your phone number, ideally a mobile phone number. And if it is a phone number with voicemail, please be sure you have a professional sounding greeting on your phone and a personal one. So when I was a recruiter, quick side note, when I would call somebody and I would not get a personal message, there was always this part of me that was wondering, is this the right person? Did I get Steve Smith? That's who I want. So when I would get a message that would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0 is not available, it made me uncomfortable as a recruiter. So if you don't have a personal greeting on your phone, please put one simple one, right? Just your name. I can't take your call right now. Please leave a message. Simple, but make sure that you do that if you're in the midst of a job hunt. It's just a nice extra thing to assure the person who's calling you that they've gotten the right person. All right, next, moving on, we've got the email here and then your LinkedIn vanity URL. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, the next thing that you do here that's different than, again, the days when I started with my resume is we used to have what was called an objective. And no longer is the objective the standard for resumes. Now, employers are looking for a concise professional summary, one that tells them about who you are, what makes you different, what makes you stand out, what makes you somebody they'd want to hire. So you can see just even in the first couple of lines here, experienced operations manager with a consistent record of performance and achievement in fast-paced environments, skilled at leading, motivating, and coaching team members in order to support company objectives, highly engaged, hands-on manager with ability to quickly understand and assess, and goes on, right? You can hear that's pretty compelling content in a very short amount of words, right? So we are really wordsmithing this and making sure that it's powerful positioning that we're using on behalf of our candidates. So you want a great professional summary that talks about you and some of your skills and experience that you bring. Then underneath that, you can call out, I typically use 9 key strengths and skills underneath that you want to show them at a glance, right? So your professional summary and your key strengths and skills are a great way for employers to get a quick glance, a quick understanding of who you are and what you bring to the table. So ensure that summary is clearly written, and that's an important piece. But now, I'm sorry, we're going to move on to your professional experience. So the next section after that top section is kind of the meat and potatoes of your resume, right? It's the body of your resume, largest amount of content is your professional experience. So you want to ensure that that is clearly written and focuses on highlighting your results and your accomplishments that would be of value or of interest to your next employer. Now, your dated experience, if you are a more experienced candidate like myself, like if I were to be out looking for a job today, I would make sure that on my resume, I only had 20 to 25 years of dated experience. That is experience that has dates attached to it. So you don't want to go back further. The truth of the matter is employers are looking at your most recent experience as their top indicator for if you're a fit for the current role that you're applying for. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like. Again, stick with me. I'll walk you through top to bottom. A couple of optional sections here. You do not need a company summary. For some people, if they feel like they want to add a little bit of content to their resume, maybe they feel like they don't have enough information underneath their professional experience. Sometimes putting something like this in can just add a little more content, right? Fill in some space, right? If you don't need that, you don't have to put it. What I typically do is with clients who are working at a company that's easily recognizable, like a Citibank or any kind of national company, John Deere, right? Whatever it may be, a recognizable name, you don't need to do a company summary. But in this case, this candidate was working at a company that I was not at all familiar with. So we wrote a quick line about who he was working for, pulled it off of the website, and you can see it's no more than 2 lines. It's like 1 sentence, maybe 2. So you keep it brief. Same with the position right below it. We wrote a summary because I wasn't sure, and how we wanted to describe his role as the Director of Fulfillment Services. Now, you don't need the summary. You could also make that just your first bullet point. That's your choice. On the right side, you'll see that in the content that we put together in our format, we only use years. And the reason for that is it's just a little bit cleaner. It's cleaner and easier for the hiring manager or the talent acquisition coordinator or the recruiter to see when you worked where. It also is kind of a nice little trick if you need to kind of hide the fact that perhaps you have been unemployed for a little while, right? It helps you fill in gaps on your resume rather than calling out the month and year. If you just have years, it simplifies it a little. Now, the other important thing I want to highlight for you for resume writing is accomplishments and results. And you can see I've got a couple highlighted here, like resulted in savings of $535,000 in rent, insurance, and taxes. That was leading a consolidation of warehouses. The other result that we highlighted was that this gentleman was in charge of safety audits, and he achieved an average increase of 10% or greater on safety scores through communication and enforcement of corporate safety policies. You see how great that sounds? What a great employee he sounds like. Not only did he do this thing, right? A lot of people on their resumes say, here's what I did, but they don't say what the result was or the accomplishment. And so that's a really important piece of your resume. Okay, you also want to create a section for technical skills and proficiencies on your resume. And again, if you are more experienced, once you've had about 15 years of professional experience, you can remove your graduation year from a college if you do have an advanced degree. So here's what that looks like. So you can have just a header that says technical skills and proficiencies and identify this. Most people will just have like Microsoft Office Suite. Maybe if you're in sales, you've got Salesforce. This doesn't need to be a laundry list. Of course, people who have very technical jobs, like computer programmers, might have a laundry list of skills or languages that they use and would promote here. So that would be kind of the exception to the rule. Most of the people who I'm working with are having just a few things here like you see. And then next you can see for education, you can just put your university, the college, the degree, and then the location of the school. That's helpful for the employer. And you can, like I said, remove your graduation dates from your education. If you have, by the way, if you don't have a college degree, but let's say maybe you did do some schooling at like a community college, you can always put that and say coursework in blah, blah, blah. And if you want, put the years or not. So if you have anything, but you don't have a degree, that's okay. You can still represent that in your education section. So let's move on to LinkedIn best practices. LinkedIn is something that I'm super passionate about. It's super important. It's a valuable tool for anybody who's actively or passively job searching. It's established as the go-to resource for online professional profiles and professional social networking. And you may be aware, of course, that they also have a large database of very high quality job postings. Like I showed you earlier, their results come through in the Google job search, but of course you can feel free to search on LinkedIn as well if you prefer. And the other thing I want you to know is that recruiters are actively searching for candidates on LinkedIn every single day. LinkedIn actually has a specialty version of their platform, their software called LinkedIn Recruiter. And recruiters pay a license fee of maybe $2,500 to $3,000 a year to have this special version of the software that allows them to do much more powerful searches for candidates. So having your profile fully built out on LinkedIn is really important because that's how recruiters can potentially find you. That's not a guarantee that they will be looking for what you do, but certainly you never know. And so having your profile complete on the platform is really important. The first thing you want to do is create a compelling headline. In the old days of LinkedIn, your headline defaulted to your current job title and your company. No longer is that the case. You can customize it. So you could put your job title. So using the one I said earlier, if you're a sales representative, you could say sales representative slash revenue, or new business development slash revenue growth slash customer, relationships or customer, retention or things like that. You get the idea, like things that relate to the job you do. This is an area that recruiters do search for keywords. So leveraging this, really important. Next, if you are actively looking for a job, there are two sections now that you can use on LinkedIn. The one on the left called Open to Job Opportunities. You can let the LinkedIn community and recruiters know. You can let everybody know, or you can just let recruiters know that you're looking for a role and what those look like, what those titles might look like. So I've dummied in some right now. For me, right, if I were looking for a job, you can also let LinkedIn members know that you provide freelance services. So using an earlier example, I talked about marketing. So let's say you're a social media manager. You could do freelance work as a social media manager when you are unemployed and looking for a job. So you could fill this section in to say, hey, here are some services I can provide to you. It's just a nice thing for people if and when they land on your profile. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is fully leverage your About section, which is directly underneath your intro section there that we saw, and underneath those job alerts, if you will, that we saw. This is how it appears in LinkedIn before you hit the See More link there on the lower left. And when you do that, you can see there's quite a lot more runway for you to work with. I encourage you to use this runway and fill this in. This is another opportunity for you to talk about yourself, what it is you enjoy about your work, what's made you successful in your work. Maybe, again, highlighting key strengths and skills like I did here at the bottom of mine. And like I do for a lot of my clients, this is another keyword searched area. So filling this in and writing a short little synopsis about who you are is a great idea. And if you're not a great writer, that's okay. Ask somebody for help, right? Ask somebody to take a look at that and help you with it. Who is a good writer once you draft something, and see what you can get in there. But it's a really great area, again, to kind of inform the LinkedIn community about who you are and what you do. It's you could actually even transfer your professional summary from your resume directly here. If that's really all you want to have here, that's just fine. At least something that tells people who you are, what you do, what you're all about. The other thing I want to emphasize is that it's so important to have your professional information filled in here. I want you to realize that LinkedIn is your online resume. And I see so many people, right, who come to me and who may have their title and their company in here, but no information. There's no reason why you don't want to have all of the same information from your resume replicated here in your professional experience. Again, if somebody lands on your profile, let's say a recruiter or a hiring manager, maybe for a job that you applied to, again, you want to impress them. You want this to look great. So you want to make sure it's complete. The other thing that's important with LinkedIn is engaging in regular activity. And I can tell you that as an entrepreneur and a business owner, this has been unbelievably effective for me. And this can be anything from making new connections, sending messages, liking content in your feed, sharing content, posting articles or updates, etc. And focus on building your network. Many people the default for LinkedIn that they've kind of unofficially set is 500 contacts. And if that overwhelms you or freaks you out, don't worry, take a breath and think about the fact that LinkedIn, or feel assured that the fact is that LinkedIn has gotten more social. So if you're on Facebook or any other social media platform, Instagram, the truth of the matter is you can connect with a lot of the same people on LinkedIn. They can be friends and family members. They can be people you went to school with at any level, right? Grade school, high school, college, beyond. They can be people in your community, neighbors, people you know. You can build your network really quickly on LinkedIn. So I want you to think outside the box and understand that it doesn't only have to be people you've literally worked with at prior companies, vendors, clients, so many people you can link into. And I encourage you to do so because it really reflects well on you, again, when potential hiring managers or recruiters look at your profile. And finally, I really want to highlight the fact that it's important to ask for recommendations. Recommendations are great because it's a third party, right? Somebody who, besides you, talking about you. So if you have a former boss or a former coworker, peer, vendor, client who you had a great relationship with, absolutely ask them for a recommendation on LinkedIn. And I do that all the time with my business, but I will tell you, I made it a practice to do this even before I had my own business. So when I was an employee at a number of companies, I made a point every time I moved jobs to ask people to recommend me once I left that job, so that I had some content on my profile that was positive. And I've always had people be very willing and generous and enthused about doing that. So I encourage you, if you're looking for a job, you want to have at least 2 more recent recommendations. And by recent, I would say within the last year. So if you've got recommendations that are older than that, try and identify a couple of people who you can reach out to, or maybe more than a couple, because everybody doesn't respond, in a super timely fashion because people are busy. People who you can ask for recommendations from, and that will really reflect well on you. So now let's move on to interview preparation. Interviewing is something I'm super passionate about as well. I love professional branding, which is what we just covered. And now, frankly, interviewing is part of your professional brand too. So when you get an interview, it's important to review the company website and relook at that job posting. So when you apply for jobs, if you apply for tons of jobs, this is not practical. But if you apply for jobs, in lower amounts, certainly, taking a copy of a job posting and popping it into a Word document, a Google Doc, is a great idea, because if you get called to interview for that job, the posting may no longer be available to you. And you want to look at that job posting before you go to an interview. It's a great resource just to remind yourself of what the key skills they said they wanted or were looking for, so that you can make sure that you're highlighting those, or try to highlight them if given the opportunity during your interview. You also want to review and highlight key items on your resume. Your resume can actually be a little cheat sheet for you when you interview. And just, review it, read it, and kind of remind yourself, what are those skills? What are those results and accomplishments that demonstrate that you're a good match for the role at hand? So like I said, you can even create a cheat sheet with bullet points, particularly if you're doing a phone interview, and even, frankly, if you're doing a Zoom interview. And we're going to talk about computer interviewing in just a moment. online interviewing. But like right now, I just pulled a piece of paper over and I put that piece of paper on my keyboard. I'm working on a laptop right now, but I can glance down briefly and take a look at it. You don't want to have too much information in front of you so that you are scanning and clearly looking at materials if you're on a Zoom call, but if you're on a phone call or a phone screen, you can certainly use a little cheat sheet to remember, hey, here's some things I'd love to call out if given the opportunity. I want you to also practice answering questions out loud to be even more prepared and comfortable for interviews. You know, so many people will say to me, oh, why can't I say that as well as you when we're doing mock interviewing and interview coaching? And I'll remind them, most people aren't engaging in interviewing on a regular basis, right? During my last 10 years of my career, and even before that, when I worked at one company for 19 years, we had to interview for jobs internally, for real. Like it wasn't, it was a formal interview. So you had to be ready to do that. And so that served me well when I left that company. And then I had these 5 different roles I secured in 7 years. I was interviewing a lot. And so I was well practiced in it and I was really good at it. But I think that in order to get really good at it, you need to practice. You need to be prepared. And so you need to do it out loud. So just reading questions and studying is one piece of it, but saying those words out loud is really important. It'll help you feel more calm, more confident, and it will help you perform better. I want to share with you that it works. These are 3 people who I did interview coaching with recently, and all 3 of them, 2 of the 3 have gotten job offers, and then the other one felt, Michael on the left, felt like his interview went really, really well. This process works. The woman on the right, Amy, had to go through 8 interviews to get that job at AbbVie. So the practice, the preparation, the thinking about what you want to say and how you want to say it, all really important to succeeding in interviews. So now, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk a little bit about video interview practice tips. So first, I'd like to just remind you that you want to try and position your camera at about eye level. So I'm using a laptop, like I said, and my camera is right at about my eye level. So if you're using a laptop like I am, that means you're going to need to prop it up on a small box, or you can use a laptop stand. And so, for example, here's a laptop stand that I ended up buying several months ago. I think it was like maybe $35. I think I got like a really great deal on it on Amazon. And I love it. That's what my computer is sitting on right now. But guess what? Before I had this, I figured out, oh, I don't like it when my laptop is sitting on a table. So I literally used a cardboard box. A cardboard box that was about 5.5 inches high is what I propped my computer on, so that I got that camera at eye level and it wasn't pleasing image, right, to the person on the other end. So it's just a tip. Like that was just an Amazon box. I literally fold that down. I actually have it in the hutch behind me. I actually took it to travel with because I needed to do some video work when I traveled back in June for about a week. Brought this with. So I'm really a big proponent of positioning that camera as best you can. It just adds a little bit of professionalism. Number 2, I want you to practice again, talking into the camera and even record yourself doing so. I know this sounds a little crazy. I know it might feel a little uncomfortable. I mean, I'm talking to a green dot right now, and I've had to get very comfortable with that concept and know that there are people on the other end of that green dot and try to interact with that green dot like it's a person. Now, you can do this on Zoom. Zoom does allow you, if you've been using a Zoom account, which I'm sure many of you have, you can record yourself and then view back. So you can just go in there and it'll start recording, or you can start a recording and just start talking. One thing I did was in terms of trying to understand, where do I look? Where do I look to make sure I look the most natural? I would literally record myself and say, I'm looking right now at the green dot on my computer. Right now, I'm looking at the top of my browser menu. You know, right now I'm looking here, because I wanted to ensure that I knew exactly where to look like I'm looking directly at the person I'm speaking with. Now, you can also do this little trick on Facebook. If you're on Facebook, you can actually create, this is a great tip a woman gave me, a private group of which you are the only member. I have a practice group like this on Facebook right now. I've been having, for example, some video issues with Facebook when I'm going live. So now I've gone into this practice group to try it and to see if it's working or not. And if it's not, then I'm not doing a Facebook Live. But I'm going in there, I'm for a few minutes recording myself and then playing that video back. So that's another way you can practice being on video and practice using this technology, which I really encourage you to do, so that when you get on a call on Microsoft Teams, on Zoom, on GoToMeeting, whatever the platform may be, you'll feel that much more comfortable. So practice with friends and family too. Instead of doing phone calls, do Zoom calls. I know people are sick of them right now, but practice makes perfect. I'm a big proponent of that. All right, number 3, try to set up in a location that looks attractive and has natural light shining on your face, like facing a window or having a light pointed toward you. Now, it's nighttime here, as we all know. We've just had daylight savings time and our change, so it's pitch black here surrounding me. I do happen to be facing a few windows, so during the daytime this is a lovely little environment, but right now I actually have a ring light that I purchased because I do videos so often, and I have that on. Without that, I would really not be visible and attractive. So you don't need to invest in a full-size ring light like I have, but you want to try and figure out, if you have to do a call when it's dark, how are you going to light yourself? That might even mean moving a lamp in front of you, in back of your computer, right, and shining it on you and seeing how it looks on camera. Here's a few resources for you, just so you can see. The one on the left is actually like a little travel light, and I bought one of these. I think this was like $19.99 on Amazon. And I used it, again, I had to do video work with CBS when I was traveling out of state back in June. And this worked beautifully. It gave me some brightness adjustments, etc. And I could just, I took that light, I piled it right on top of a cooler that I had in back of my computer that was on the cardboard box, and it worked beautifully. It lit me nicely so that I was nice and visible. You can also buy something on the right that's called the Lume Cube, L-U-M-E. That's a little bit more expensive. I think it's closer to like $89, $90. I've had a client who bought that, loves it. You just clip it to the top of your laptop and you're good to go. And you have all the adjustability there as well. Bigger investment, I understand, but if your job is going to require you being on Zoom a lot or being on video a lot, it might be worthwhile. So just a couple of resources there for you. So let's talk about interviewing itself. Obviously, we're not doing many in-person interviews now, but some companies might be, but you want to arrive on time or early. But now with the world of video interviewing, you don't want to arrive too early, right? Because as the interviewer, I might be in back-to-back interviews for a half hour. So I'm interviewing from 12 to 12:30 and you're at 12:30. I don't really want you to join at 12:25. Although, as you know, now Zoom and other providers will give me the option, right, as the account owner, to admit you or not. But there was a time when you could have just popped in on a meeting. So I suppose you can join a little bit early, but with a video call, not too early, maybe just a minute or two. If it's in person, certainly earlier is a good best practice. One important thing that you want to remember for any interview is you want to demonstrate enthusiasm about the company and about the opportunity. So important. So you really want to let people feel the fact that you're excited. Let them hear that you're excited. I know you might think that that sounds a little crazy. You don't want to be over the top, but you do want to say, I am passionate about the work I do, and I think this opportunity is a great fit for my skills and experience. I'm really excited to be speaking with you about this today. Something like that sounds really genuine. So try and figure out how you can genuinely express your enthusiasm about the role. Keep answers brief and to the point. You know, I mentioned earlier that interviewers typically have a limited amount of time. When I scheduled interviews, I typically scheduled an hour for myself, and I planned for about 45 minutes. Now, sometimes if I really liked a candidate, I went longer and I went almost the full hour with them. But since you don't know that as a candidate, you have to keep your answers brief and to the point. If the interviewer wants to know more, they're going to ask you more. They will ask questions to gain clarifying information. But you want to be succinct and clear. Provide a little bit of detail, but not too much. Because remember, the interviewer is only just meeting you, and too much information can actually overwhelm somebody, even somebody who's interviewing you for a job. So you have to be thoughtful about what you highlight and about the words you choose. So it's just something that you want to practice. Again, that'll help you if you practice that out loud. You want to convey positivity, engagement, and likability. The other secret to being successful in interviews is the fact that you want to connect with your interviewer. You want to connect with that other person, whether it's in person or on screen. Try and be relaxed. Try and, breathe, whatever you need to do to calm down before you get on a Zoom call or a phone call, and try to connect. Be human. Understand they don't expect you to be perfect, and they'd much rather connect with you somehow. So trying to be yourself, I guess, at the end of the day, and trying to kind of figure out what this person sounds like, what makes them tick, and connect with them. I want you to also have 2 to 3 questions prepared to ask at the end of the interview. It's important that these questions, be thoughtful, be questions that maybe are not kind of run of the mill. Asking about company culture is actually a really great question because it's a big topic these days. Tell me about your company culture. I'm curious to learn about it. Or, tell me about, or maybe I noticed XYZ on your website. Are there any other key priorities in your business right now? Or what are the biggest challenges facing your business or this group or both these days? These are questions that are more elevated and you can ask of any member of the organization, no matter what their level, whether it's an HR person, whether it's a hiring manager, or whether it's a senior VP. You can ask these questions that really help you to sound, I think, a little more strategic as a candidate and thoughtful. So you don't want to get into the nitty gritty and the details of the job, like how much vacation time will I have, or what's a typical day like? You could ask about the team, or you could ask about some other things, but be mindful of trying to keep those questions a little bit bigger picture and a little more strategic. You do want to ask for the email address of anybody you interview with. So again, sometimes people aren't giving them out now. It depends on the company. If it's a large company, sometimes that talent acquisition person or HR manager is kind of the gatekeeper, if you will. But always ask, right? May I get your email address? I'd like to send you a thank you note to follow up from our meeting today. Is always nice. So be aware of that. Put a little post-it, remind yourself to do that, because it's always nice for you to be able to send them a thank you afterward. So how do you prepare for interview questions? Well, there are 2 types. There's general interview questions and behavioral interview questions. So general interview questions sound like, how did you hear about this opportunity? Or tell me what interests you about the position? Or what do you think are the most important skills required for this position? So these are general questions an interviewer might ask you. For behavioral interview questions, they've become very popular with companies over the last several years, and they are typically asking about a specific incident, and companies believe that your answer about what you did in the past will be an indication of your behavior in the future. These sound like, tell me about a time when you made a mistake and how you handled it, or tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a coworker and how you dealt with it. And the key to, actually, I'll go back to this, is the key to answering behavioral questions real quickly is having stories prepared. Stories and examples of successes in your experience, and also stories of challenges that you've experienced. If you create a few of those, kind of remember a few of those, and then think about how you want to speak to them in an interview, of course, in a way that doesn't make other people look bad, you're not critical of them. Those will help you to have answers a little bit more top of mind that can be slotted into a lot of different behavioral questions. So that's a little pro tip. All right, so for interview follow-up, it's always a good idea to write a thank you email to your interviewers. And ideally, you want to do this within about 24 hours of your interview. You want to thank them for the interview. You want to let them know that the interview has made you even more enthused about this opportunity. Again, going back to my positivity, right? You want to reinforce that you're enthused. You want to reiterate why you would be a great fit for the role. And ideally, you don't want to go into a huge, lengthy laundry list here. Ideally, you want to give them 3 reasons, 3 things that maybe came out of your interviewing process. And then let them know that you're looking forward to your feedback. So if you interviewed at 1 p.m. today, ideally by 1 p.m. tomorrow, you want to have an email into the person thanking them for their time. 24, 48 hours, you can go a little bit over 24. Ideally, it's next day though, okay? So that's a really good best practice. I know a lot of people, write thank you notes. You don't have to these days, especially with COVID, people are working at home. Then with interview follow-up, you want to wait maybe 4 to 7 days before following up again. Ideally, you want to ask them, hey, what are next steps for the interview process? And typically, I hope people will tell you, hey, here's the process. We're still interviewing people for this amount of time. So don't be following up with them the next day. So, you want to give them a few days because this process takes time for most companies. And then don't be discouraged, try not to be, I guess, by a lack of feedback. I know so many candidates get so frustrated with employers because they do tend to take longer with this process. Sometimes they do ghost you, and that's terrible, and they shouldn't. So just stay the course and feel free to reach back out weekly until you get a response. I mean, hopefully you get one. I mean, eventually, if you don't, you may have to give up, but I do encourage you to be respectful, wait a week or so in between. If they don't give you any feedback, you want to continue to ask, follow up with them because you do, in my opinion, of course, and I'm sure in yours too, deserve to get an answer back once you've done an interview. So that's everything I tried to cram in 1 hour. I could have done more, and I see we've got a few questions coming in. So while Jordan gets ready to come on and we can go over those, I just wanted to highlight to all of you that you are welcome to join my email list. You can just go to my website and just hit the contact page, and I send emails out with lots of great information about all the things we talked about today and more. Great little tips for people. I'm just got tons of information that I'm happy to share with you. I also have a Facebook group that you can join called Job Search Strategies and Career Coaching for Professionals. If you search for that group, you can just enter a couple of pieces of information and join. Lots of great videos in there, great resources, and you can connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. I would welcome that as well, considering I'm such a big LinkedIn fan. So with that, I want to make sure that we have time to answer the questions tonight, and I'm just going to take a peek at the chat and see what the questions are. So I'll answer them in order. So how many minutes should each answer be to an interview question? Great question. Not even minutes, probably. I mean, it'll depend on the question, of course. But for example, what I encourage people to do is have a brief answer. So, like certain questions will necessitate more time. But I guess the goal is that you want to do this in the shortest amount of time possible without rushing yourself. But if I were to ask you, for example, give me the top 3 to 5 skills that you believe have contributed to your professional success. Okay, so hang on, I'm going to set a timer. Let's see how long I do this for. 1 second. Let me get to the timer on my phone. And okay, all right, there we go. I'm going to do stopwatch. Okay, so 3 to 5 skills. Well, I would say that one of my top skills is being strategic. I've been in sales and sales management for several years, and strategy is really one of my very favorite things, figuring out how we're going to get to the next level. I also love learning. I love really building strong relationships internally and externally, and really helping the business move forward and really being a great team member and helping that business move forward. So I would say that those are my 4 top strengths. Okay, that was 30 seconds. So you can hear I gave a little bit of detail to illustrate what I was talking about, but I answered the question pretty quickly. A lot of people can get wrapped up in explaining everything that they answer. You can explain a little and you can go more than 30 seconds. I mean, that was pretty tight. I might have said a little bit more. I'm not sure. It just depends, right? But you can hear that you can do it pretty quickly. And if they want more information, well, tell me more about, being strategic. What do you mean by that? Well, then you have the runway now to get into a little more detail. So ideally, it's 30 seconds to a minute, I would say, for most questions. But again, there are going to be exceptions, so it's really hard for me to kind of say a hard and fast rule. I hope that helps. Okay, and then we've got a question about the recording, and we've got that taken care of from the library. And it says, if you had an interview 2 weeks ago, here's another question. If you had an interview 2 weeks ago, is it too late to send the thank you email now? Never too late. Nope. Go right ahead and be like, and you can just say, I'm so sorry. I realized I never sent a thank you note. I wanted to express, how much I appreciated your time and appreciated the opportunity to meet with you for the job. So never too late. Give it a try. See what happens. I certainly hope that you get an answer, but it is a best practice to do that. So hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, it's a good thing to do that ongoing. So I'm glad you asked that. Okay, great. And then somebody says, let's see, an interview with a panel of 5 members next week. Okay, panel interviews, good question. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the same. Obviously you have to be really mindful of paying attention to the fact that you've got a number of people to really, I guess it's not really any different than addressing one person. But you've got 5 people who are evaluating you at once. Just try to not get too wound up about it. I think it's not going to be all that different, except that you may get different vibes from, is the best way for me to put it, different energy from different people. Some people might be a little bit more engaged with you, right? Other people may not be. So no matter what with that panel, no matter if you've got, let's say, one person who just seems like they're not really that into you, don't let that throw you, right? Just bring your A game, bring your energy, and just, knock it out of the park as best as you can and give everybody the best impression. Because some people, we don't get back from them what we're looking for. It doesn't mean that they're not impressed with us. So read the energy of different people too. So if you have somebody who looks and asks you questions in a certain way, and you can kind of tell they're a no-nonsense person, definitely manage your answers differently for them than you might to somebody else who maybe asks you a little bit of a different question that might be a little longer, might give you a little bit of opportunity to show your personality or answer a little bit, a little bit with a little bit of a longer answer. So manage that as well. So at the end of the day, I would say you just treat it like any other interview, except that it's a little bit more tiring. You feel like you're managing more because you are. Okay. Great. Yeah, well, she said, thanks. I'm afraid of the director level people. Don't be afraid. I was a director. I'm not scary, but listen, I hope they want you to succeed, and don't be afraid of them, and just see how it goes, and do your preparation, and you'll be just fine.
All right. Well, first off, thank you, Lynée. That was great. I always enjoy hearing you present for us. So here's my contact information in case you want to reach out for any reason or schedule a one-on-one meeting. We also help with, of course, the resumes and cover letters, but we also help with, I thought I had my video on, but I didn't. There I am.
There you go.
You were talking about looking at the camera, and I was like, I don't see my face. But yeah, we do practice interviews. Some people I see attending tonight, we've certainly had practice interviews where we do something just like this, where you can see us and hear us. Just let me know. Go ahead and email me, or you can email the librarian account I mentioned earlier. We hope that you'll consider attending more webinars. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, November 17th at 7 p.m. and that is Tech Tips for Your Job Search. I will be co-presenting that alongside the library's technology librarian, Susan Winkler. And then after that, we are hosting Brennan Hightower, who is Parkland College's, our community college, Lynée. She is the career counselor there. And we have a lot more coming up. We encourage you to please visit our events calendar online champaign.org/events. If you want to get there a little bit faster, we have some thank yous, Lynée, for you. Yes. We have more, not just career series, but we have more webinars related to our business series, our Crafty Adults, which is very popular, our Writers Workshops, and our technology series. Again, visit our website for more information. And then once again, our library is open. We can help you virtually and in person. Just visit our website, champaign.org, for more information. You can email us at librarian@champaign.org. You can request a book librarian session where you can meet with a staff member one-on-one via Zoom. We can meet with you here in the building. It's the timing is a little bit limited, but we've been meeting with people via Zoom and Skype and whichever platform you're comfortable with. So yeah, that's all I have. Thank you all again for joining us. Thank you once again to Lynée. And if we don't have any further questions, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this webinar. All right.
Thank you so much. Good to
Take
be
care,
with all
everyone.
of you.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.